I was always a big dreamer. Dream one day I'll be like Michael Jordan. And that dream did come true. But it was another dream that I had. Another dream that I'm going to share with you all today. Here's my story. Marcus Jordan, the star shooting guard for the Chicago Bulls, had just wrapped up an exhausting game. The cheers of the crowd still echo in his mind as he sank into the plush leather of his apartment couch. He had been looking forward to a quiet evening, but that was interrupted when his phone buzzed with the message from his agent. "Big event tonight. Your presence is expected. I'll text you the details." He signed, tossing his phone onto the coffee table. Marcus hated these things, chilling with sponsors and pretending to enjoy stale conversations with people who only cared about his stats. But duty called. As the evening crept closer, Marcus prepared himself reluctantly. He slipped into a crisp suit, checked his reflection, and headed out. His Uber was waiting downstairs, but as soon as he got in, something felt off. The driver was quiet, almost eerie, so except for the occasional mothering under his breath. The man's face was obscured in shadows, illuminated only briefly when they passed under streetlights. Marcus felt a shiver creep down his spine as he heard snippets of the man's murmurs. "Not much time. They always come. They always take." Marcus leaned forward, his voice tight. "Hey man, you good?" The driver snapped his head around, his eyes wide and glassy. "You should have stayed home. You should have stayed home." Before Marcus could respond, the car jolted violently, as if it hit a pothole. When he looked up, he realized they were no longer on the familiar streets of downtown Chicago. The buildings wasn't there. The windows shattered. The streetlights flickered erratically, casting long, distorted shadows. "Where are we?" Marcus demanded. The driver didn't answer. Instead, he slammed on the brakes, sending Marcus lurching forward. The car door clicked open seemingly on its own. "You should walk from here," the driver whispered, his voice trembling. Before Marcus could argue, the man sped off, leaving him alone in the dimly lit street. A cold wind whipped past, carrying faint whispers that seemed to call his name. After wandering for what felt like hours, Marcus finally spotted a glimmer of neon light in the distance. The sign above the door read "Sanctum," glowing blood red. The bouncer nodded silently as Marcus approached, his face pale and expressionless. Inside the club was a sensory overload. Pulsing music shook the walls, and the air was thick with smoke and perfume. Strangers danced and laughed, their faces blurring in the strobe lights. Something about the crowd seemed wrong. As Marcus made his way to the bar, he noticed a woman staring at him from across the room. Her eyes were unnaturally wide, and her lips curled into a twisted smile. She raised her glass in a mock toast before vanishing into the throng. Marcus tried to shake off the unease. "It's just a party," he told himself. "Relax." But the whispers followed him, growing louder every time he turned. There was nothing there. Just as Marcus was beginning to relax, the room plunged into darkness. The music stopped, replaced by the sound of heavy footsteps. A single spotlight flickered on illuminating a figure standing at the entrance. The man was dressed in all black, his face obscured by a ski mask. He raised the gun and fired into the crowd. Chaos erupted as people screamed and scrambled for cover. Marcus dove behind an overturned table, his heart pounding. Gunmen moved around the bar, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. The screams grew quieter as more bodies hit the floor. Marcus held his breath, his hands shaking. Suddenly, the gunman's boots appeared in his line of sight. He was standing right in front of him. The man crouched down, tilting his head as he looked at Marcus through the mask. Marcus could feel the weight of his gaze. Slowly, the gunman raised his weapon, pressing the cold barrel against Marcus' forehead. "This is it," the man whispered. "You should have stayed home." A piercing ring shattered the silence. Marcus jolted upright, drenched in sweat. He was back on his couch, his heart racing. His hand instinctively flew to his head, searching for the bullet wound that wasn't there. The phone continued to ring. He reached for it with trembling hands. "Hello? Marcus, it's me, man." His agent familiar voice chirped. "Just calling to remind you about the event tonight. I'll text you the details." The phone slipped from Marcus' hand, clattering to the floor. His blood ran cold as he stared at it. The words echoed in his mind. "You should have stayed home. You should have stayed home." At that moment, Marcus knew he should stay home. And that night haunt him. And that night haunt him for the rest of his days.